Welcome to the realm of intoxicating flavors and head-banging beer reviews.
Welcome to another episode of the Rare Beer Club. I'm your host, the Ginger Yeti. And if you're new to the channel, the Rare Beer Club is a subscription club put out by the beerofthemonthclub.com. I receive a box of beers that contains 2 hand-selected beers, costs about $60 a month. And I usually unbox the beers. I select one to review blindly and then review the second one later in another video. However, I've been receiving this club for a long time. And well before the time of me doing a beer channel, YouTube channel, I used to take them down to a beer day with TK's house. And we used to drink 6, 7, 8 of these in a night, get fluthered, have a good time. But at some point during the pandemic, I would take them down there and we just wouldn't drink them. I don't know what happened, but we kind of just stopped drinking them. Maybe it's because we always want to get new check-ins and would rather drink 15, 16 different new beers than like 5, 6 of these in a night. Maybe we were just getting too fluthered drinking these, but whatever the case is, I have a bunch of these that were already unboxed, already opened, and I still want to review them. And I've been trying to organize my beers better. Just bought myself a beer fridge for Christmas. I found some of these that are quite old. This one right here, I'll let you know right now, is from 2020. It probably shouldn't have aged that long, but we're going to get into it. So this is the Strange Roots Experimental Ales from Millvale and Gibsonia, Pennsylvania. Now, Millvale I'm pretty familiar with because Millvale has a concert venue called Mr. Small's. Done a lot of shows there. It's a really cool venue. I don't know where Gibsonia, PA is, but Millvale is kind of close to the Pittsburgh area. And this is called the Ancient Vortex, and it was a Rare Beer Club exclusive. Beer Advocate says it's been retired. Don't know if you can find this beer anymore, but I want to review it anyways. Now, the Rare Beer Club does come with this cool paperwork, and I'm going to read a little bit about this. It's going to be a little bit of reading tonight because the history of the brewery is kind of interesting. I'll tell you right now, this is a Belgian-style dark ale with raw cacao and candy sugar conditioned on cacao beans. It's 9.2% ABV. So, the brewery. Strange Roots Experimental Ales will be a new name to many of you, but some of our members will recall their mixed culture Agent Orange with persimmons and apricots, which we featured in 2018. I think I did have that. Or this Pennsylvania brewery's previous name, which I've never heard this name before. Dry Log. DRAAILAAG Brewing. Dennis Hook started Dry Log back in 2011. Self-engineering an $800 brewing system and bootstrapping an operation that focused heavily on complex sour ales and bringing in local ingredients and microflora. That small batch out there approach Dry Log system at the time made only 2 barrels of beer at once. Brought forth some amazing results, and a small amount of Dry Log's bottles saw wide exposure through Shelton Brothers. I don't even know what Shelton Brothers is. But as Dennis was looking to move into exploring a wider range of beer styles, the brewery became Strange Roots in March of 2018. So Dennis is still doing beers that are way out there. He's been building his brewing capabilities for around 20 years, and this is pretty crazy right here. Since he was 17 years old and his mom agreed to let him brew as long as he wouldn't drink any, relying on of-age neighbors for feedback. Can you imagine that being a 17-year-old kid brewing beers? I never even thought about that. I wish I would have, because that would have been cool, because you could buy all the ingredients yourself. You don't have to be of any certain age to buy beers. Like, that would have been amazing to just brew your own beer and then drink it when you were well below the age of majority to drink. Strange Roots looks to the future. He's looking to push the envelope even further. Strange Roots recently released Grand Blue. Again, this is from 2020, so this is a little dated. A collab with House of 1,000 Beers that uses Penicillium roqueforti, responsible for the distinct character of blue cheese, accompanied by additions of peaches and fermented in cask for 11 months. That sounds really bizarre. The brewery's been surveying and testing local wild microflora for brewing possibilities, with one key highlight being their Park series of beers, fermented with yeast and bacteria harvested from local Pittsburgh area parks. That's something Paul from PA Brew News might be into. I mean, Paul, if you're watching this, that's kind of cool. Like, going around to different parks in Pennsylvania and just sampling different yeasts to brew beers with. That's an interesting idea. So on to the beer. Strange Roots Ancient Vortex, which is a Belgian-style dark ale brewed with raw cacao and candy sugar and conditioned on cacao beans. Malt forward emphasis of the quadruple-like Belgian-style ale leads. With potent levels of caramelization, brown sugar, and dried fruits amplified by subtle acidity and fruit. Cacao's super smooth. I hope all that held up. Because I really shouldn't have aged this beer, but I've got so many beers and they get lost. And like I said, I just cleaned up my beer stash area, found a lot of old beers I didn't realize I had that I probably need to get on and start drinking. So Strange Roots Ancient Vortex pours a dense, mostly opaque golden brown, capped by light tan foam that sticks around for a good while after the initial pour. Gotta remember that. There's definitely a bit of a reddish hue present, and this Belgian-style dark ale overall provides a reddish-brown glow when held up to the light. The foam's persistent, leaving behind dense lacing along the edges of the glass, a dark, colorful beer with nice visual presentation overall. And on this paperwork, it always tells you suggested glassware, and I swear, and I say this every time, suggested glassware is always snifter, tulip, goblet, or pinot glass. So I got this little glass here with the skull on it. Could I open this beer up? Said this is 4-ish years old. I mean, it's 2025 now, and this is from 2020. Hopefully it aged well. A little bit of a hiss. I can see the head starting, a little bit of gun smoke. I can see the head starting to creep up the bottle a little bit. Not very fast. I mean, if I sit here and talk a couple more minutes, you might start seeing that head just kind of creep over the top of the bottle, and here it comes, kind of like the New Year's Eve ball dropping. There you can see it. That head's starting to creep up over the top of the glass. So let's pour it in. Still getting a nice head on there. Big head. Big head. So what did it say? Yeah, it's kind of like a ruby red. Do the smell first, then we'll come back to the color. It says generous aromatics are present from the first pour of Ancient Vortex. I don't know about generous aromatics, but again, this is an old beer, unfortunately. My second old beer of the night. Expressive caramels, burnt sugar, and plenty of dried dark fruits. I do actually get that. There's some caramel, burnt sugar. I do get dried fruits, but it's all very subtle. Leans heavily on an expressive quadruple approach, massively malty and creamy Belgian-style foaming, forming the core framework here. Cacao throughout is pleasant chocolate undertone. Welcoming touches of char and licorice and bitter clove, providing a nicely bitter edge. Yeah, maybe that's part of the flavor profile as I'm reading that. But yeah, surprisingly, I do get a little bit of the caramel, burnt sugar, some dark fruits, maybe even a little bit of char. I actually just got a little bit of like cocoa powder. But it's all very subtle. It's all very subdued. And again, this is an aged beer now. It shouldn't have been aged. Probably should not have been aged at all. And like the color says, I mean, I don't know if I call it a golden brown, but it's definitely like a reddish brown. Probably about a 16 on my SRM chart. And it does have a light tan foam that isn't going anywhere. I mean, that foam is just sitting there, kind of mousse-like on the top. And it's going nowhere. Well, let's taste this 4-year-old beer, right? Cheers, everybody. A little bit of evaporative booziness in there. A little bit of chocolate, surprisingly. It's light-bodied. Very light-bodied to me. I mean, it's not very light-bodied, but it's light-bodied. I expected it to be a heavier body. It's light-bodied. Some chocolate notes. Some dark fruits. It's actually pretty easy to drink. As the paperwork says, welcome touches of char, licorice, and bitter clove. I don't get any of that. Bitter edge, no bitter edge here. Core malt focus. I mean, there's some malt sweetness. Plum fruit, maybe a hint of oak underneath. Don't get any of that. Lots of cherry, strawberry, and currant. The aroma expands a bit with some time to warm. I mean, there are some fruits there. There's some fruit notes there. I did pull this out of the fridge about an hour ago and let it sit kind of near the heater because it is a cold, bitter cold winter evening here, and it's not going to warm up in the studio. But it's still kind of cool. I mean, serving temperature is 52 to 59. And this is 14C. How do I switch that back? That's 57. Says this is 59 degrees, so I got it right there around in the proper temperature, surprisingly. But this beer, I don't know. First sip of Ancient Vortex. Oh, here's the tasting notes. I was up layered caramels and toffee, don't get that. Bringing forth a huge amount of dark malt character. I don't even know if I get any dark malt, really. Without stepping into that full-on roasted coffee of a stout. There's a pleasant underpinning of vinous, fruity alcohol that helps streamline the feel here as well. Yeah, there's some fruity alcohol. Along with those bittering elements, I don't get any bittering elements whatsoever. Clove, even a touch of peppery phenols, burnt sugar, think creme brulee. I don't get any peppery phenols. Maybe some burnt cream brulee, kind of crusty sweetness, kind of. Maybe even a hint of oak tannins. Nope. Ton to dive into as this beer warms. We found all sorts of additional details. Candied orange, spiced cookies, hints of licorice and char and toast. I don't get a lot of that. I mean, again, I'm judging a beer that should have been drank fresh, and I screwed up and didn't. There is some nice fruitiness to it. Don't get any real bitterness. But it's actually a decent beer. I mean, I'm not disappointed in what this turned into. And I can tell you, because I think I mentioned it in one of my other videos, there was a moment there with the Rare Beer Club where there was some issues. And somehow I got a couple of double shipments or some nonsense. And so I did actually drink this beer fresh. And when I drank it fresh, I drank it down at a beer day with TK's house in 2020. And him and I drank it fresh, and I gave it a 3.75 on Untapped. So it was a decent beer then. I don't know if I'd give this aged version of it a 3.75. This is probably more around like a 3.25, but I'd give it a horns up. It's lost a lot of the character, lost a lot of the flavor, being 4+ years old, but it's still decent beer. It's still a tasty beer. I'll finish this bottle. Not disappointed in that at all. It's got some nice, like I said, nice chocolatey notes, nice dark fruit notes. It just lost a lot of the other flavors that this paperwork describes, although maybe my palate isn't as refined to pick up a lot of those flavors, but it's still a nice beer. Glad I found it in my basement. Glad that it's still a decent beer, and I'm going to enjoy the rest of it this evening. Hope you're all glad you found my video. Have you made it through to the end? I don't know who in the world will watch this video all the way to the end, but if you did, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. If you made it to the end and you haven't subscribed to me, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps me out. And as always, embrace the adventure.